welcome everyone. I'm thrilled to bits to see all of you here today. Some of you, we already know each other, but there's some new faces here as well. So I'm going to start with telling you who this webinar is for, so that you know if you're in the right place. So it's for the members of the armed forces who want to pass the STANAG 6001 exam, or the SLP exam, or the JFLT exam. Okay, the exam has different names in different countries. For people who are struggling with their writing skills in English, and action takers who need guidance and clarity, both also for people who already took the exam in the past and first timers. And this webinar is for you if you want to dive deeper in the topic of writing, you want to learn some specific and easily applicable strategies, and you want to finally start seeing results and progress, because maybe you feel a little bit stuck with the whole topic of writing. And also if you want to open a new chapter in your career, because sometimes the exam can open doors to some new career paths. I will start by introducing myself. As I said, some of you already know me, but I want to tell you a little bit more about myself, apart from what you see in my Instagram or Facebook feed, who I am, where I came from. So I'm Magda, and I'm an SLP teacher. I'm also a copywriter. That's my side hustle. I'm an ebook creator and STANAG 6001 course creator. And I have a teaching background, master's degrees in teaching English and bilingual education, and 12-year experience in teaching in the classroom and recently also online. I taught English in Poland, in Spain, in Italy, and also in Kyrgyzstan. So I also have an episode of teaching there. So I like going to some remote places. And long story short, in March 2020, I had worked in the academy and we had classes with soldiers from the military base nearby. And, you know, the pandemic started, COVID started, and everything was shut down. And from one day to another, I was laid off. And I decided to reinvent myself, and it gave me a push to start to be more active in the online world, which I fell in love with. And now I only teach online, which gives me a chance to connect with students from many different countries. And also my students can be in so many different places. We had classes with students who are in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Mali. So that has been a great experience for me as well. So what we'll cover today is going to be the SLP writing types, the common writing challenges that students come across, and what really transforms your writing. If at some point you have any questions or that you would like me to answer, you can type them in the chat. We have like a little chat here. Yeah, you have to just scroll down and there is like a chat icon. Feel free to ask me any questions. At the end of the webinar, I will answer them, but you can type them anytime throughout the webinar. All right, let's start with the SLP writing types. So as you know, there is no like one official exam format. Every country does it a little bit differently. So I've worked with students from 5 different countries, and each of them does it very differently. And I wanted to show you today some examples of tasks and also what types of tasks are required at different levels in different countries. So you get like a general idea about it. A lot of students are also curious about it and they ask me about it. Hey, Magda, can you tell us what the exam looks like in Spain, in Poland, in Portugal, Italy? And yeah, I'm just going to share a little bit of that with you today. First of all, we are going to talk about the types of tasks because they differ between the countries quite a lot. And that's actually what I'm going to jump into right now. The level 2 tasks in most of the countries are the letters, formal or informal, and reports. However, in some countries, there are also this kind of extra formats like descriptions or narrations. And sometimes it's not said explicitly, like write a description, but it will be like a part of your task. Sometimes it will be like incorporated in a letter, you know, like you need to know how to describe and narrate. These are like the basics for the level 2, which doesn't mean that these skills are not useful at the level 3. Because, for example, in Spain, if there are any Spanish students here, in Spain, even at the level 3, you have the task for the level 2 and for the level 3, and you have to complete both. So sometimes like we need to cover both the level 2 and the level 3 types of tasks. The level 3 tasks require much more higher order thinking skills. So at this level, you have to speculate, you have to come up with some hypothesis. So this will be a completely different level in terms of the language and thinking. But sometimes, you know, like they will mix up a little bit. At the level 3, we've got letters, mostly formal letters, because they are more challenging than the informal ones, reports, memoranda, essays, and articles. And here again, it will depend on your country. Some countries decided to go for the structure of the exam more similar to the Cambridge exam, and they ask students to write essays and articles, which is the case in Spain. And in some countries, they focus on more practical types of writing, I would say, letters, reports, and memoranda, which is the case in Poland, for example. Yeah, let's talk about the assessment. In most of the NATO countries, the criteria that will be used to assess your writing will be the following. I want to emphasize one more thing here. Very often students think that they are assessed only according to their accuracy. So the number of mistakes that they make, which is not true. Accuracy is one of the 4 aspects that are assessed. We've got language. And in this category, we've got the variety of structures that you use, vocabulary, collocations, and also the right context. So you need to know whether you should use formal or informal register and adapt it. Then, the way you organized your text, it also matters a lot. How you organize your paragraphs, also how logical your paragraph is, and how effective is your communication. And also the cohesive devices, we also call them linking words, how effectively you use them in your text. Finally, there is this category that is called task achievement. So the examiners will pay attention whether you actually completed the task. In some countries, you will have the bullet points where they specify exactly what you want to include. In other countries, it will be like more a general task. So you need to stick to the instructions that you're given and complete the task according to what is given. And also like that, the general impression that your text gives, okay, this also counts. Is it easy to read, or it's like kind of hard to read? Is it full of like translation from your native language? All of these things matter. And finally, accuracy. So the frequency of errors, spelling, punctuation, capitalization, advancement of structures, all of this repetition as well. All of these things are included in the accuracy. Okay, I'm going to show you some examples of tasks from different countries. Here we have the task from the Polish STANAG exam. All of them are for the level 3. So the Polish task, the Spanish task, the Italian one, and the Portuguese one. And interestingly enough, like they're quite different from each other. Because, for example, if you take a look at the Polish task, this is a report that we need to write. It is very specific in terms of what you need to write about. There are like bullet points that tell you exactly what you need to include, which makes the life of the Polish students a little bit easier. Okay, the more specific is the task, the easier it is to complete it. Then you can just tick it off. Okay, done, done. Whereas in Spain, for example, the task has two parts. Okay, there's first like the introduction to the task, then we have the level 2 task and the level 3 task, which doesn't mean that you just jump to the level 3 task. No, you have to do both level 2 and level 3, as I have already mentioned. So that's the task. This one in particular is related to the military topic, but it doesn't have to be. You know that it's not necessarily specifically a military topic. The Polish exam, in the task, we have the topic about heavy traffic in the big cities. So really nothing to do with the military. In the Spanish exam, this one happens to be. And then the Italian task. This one is quite short. We don't have so much information given. So you have a little bit more freedom here, like to decide what to write about. And finally, the Portuguese task, the task from the Portuguese exam is a little bit like philosophical, I would say. We have a quote that we have to discuss, and we have to discuss it in the context of freedom of speech and express the opinion. A lot of tasks have this like express your opinion part included. So I just wanted to give you like the overview of how varied are the tasks all around the NATO countries, just as a curiosity. Because then when I work with students, like I adjust like the strategies that we use to the country where you come from, because we have to do that, because we'll work differently with the students from Poland and with the students from Italy, for example. All right, let's talk about common writing challenges. So I decided to discuss 3 challenges today, and I didn't want to call them mistakes. Okay, I wanted to call them challenges, because I think that there are some quick fixes to that. And sometimes we make this kind of mistakes just because we don't know that it's actually wrong, because nobody told us explicitly like, hey, this is not how you're supposed to do that. So I would call them challenges, what students find challenging. The first thing is we like to overcomplicate things. We read the task and we start to think about like elaborate arguments to support our opinions. We think that we need to be so creative. Then we start to write those overly long sentences because we think, okay, the longer, the better, right? Like the longer is my sentence, the more advanced it's going to be. And this is not true. Actually, it's quite the opposite. The fewer words you use to express an idea, the more impact it will have. Okay, it needs to be concise in order to be effective. Okay, if you start to dwell on the topic, prolong this sentence unnecessary, it will not have the same impact. Okay, so avoid wordiness, avoid rambling, like all of this unnecessary blah, blah, blah that could be really avoided. Get to the point. Okay, examiners will really appreciate that. And in some writing forms, you really cannot do that, because the whole point of this format is to be specific and concise. For example, in the reports or in memoranda. When you write memorandum, like you cannot write like overly long sentences. That's not the point. Okay, so if you don't manage to fulfill this requirement, you're just missing the whole point of the task. So I want you to be aware of that. that in this case, clarity is more important than quantity. I'm going to share the next slide with you. Clarity rather than quantity. And stick to the task. Okay, focus on what is the topic, what you're asked to write. Don't ramble. Okay, avoid that at all costs. Also, try to use dense words instead of just describing. For example, people who they didn't know, we can just call them strangers. Okay, and there are many examples of that when you actually know a more specific word, but for some reason you use like 5 words instead of 1. Okay, this is wordiness. This is using way too many words to express an idea, and we want to avoid that. Okay, I want to show you a formula for a paragraph that I think works the best. I have read, and I'm not exaggerating, like hundreds of writings. And in my opinion, this is the best formula for a successful paragraph. 3 sentences of medium length. The first sentence, okay, I'm talking about the main body. Okay, I'm not talking about the introduction and the conclusion because they are usually a little bit shorter, but we are talking about the main body of your writing. 3 sentences, medium length. Start your sentence with a connector. It could be connector of sequence or adding some information, a linking word. And then develop the topic sentence. Topic sentence contains the thought that you develop throughout the paragraph. Okay, so this is like the first time the person who is reading your text is hearing your idea, this thought that you're going to elaborate on. So this is the sentence number 1. Sentence number 2, support your argument. Okay, use a supporting argument to the first sentence that you have just written. Use a justification, and you can also use an example if you want to, or if you have like a really good example to support that. Okay, so the first, the second, and then we have the closing sentence. Okay, we're closing the paragraph and smoothly moving to the next one. So in my opinion, this simple structure always helps you to be very clear with your ideas, okay, because you introduce the topic with a topic sentence, then you support your argument with a justification, an example, and then you close the whole paragraph. Okay, so that's what I suggest doing when you structure your paragraphs. And get to the point, okay? Avoid beating around the bush and making those vague statements. Be specific, okay? Don't waste your reader's time. Get to the point. Okay, so this is the challenge number 1. Overcomplicate it. Don't overcomplicate. Simplify. Okay, the whole idea is to make it simple, not more complicated. More complicated doesn't mean more advanced. Okay. Number 2. A lot of people struggle with generalizing in a correct way in English. Very often they copy a structure from their native language where they use you in order to make general statements. And that's a very common mistake that I have seen in a lot of writings, and that's actually something that disqualifies you from getting the level 3. I've seen some examiners' corrections where they were writing specifically that this person doesn't know how to generalize. Okay, this means that this person doesn't qualify for the level 3. So really pay a lot of attention to that, how you make general statements in English. Don't use you in order to generalize. I'm going to show you some examples of that. Instead of saying, you can wonder, say, one can only wonder what could have happened if. Okay, so I developed this sentence a little bit longer, but the whole idea is don't use you. Use one. Okay, you can also use the plural form, some people, right? That's also something that we use in order to make these general statements. Some people, one, they are the way to generalize. Then, when it comes to the sexes in English, sometimes we get ourselves like in this trap that we don't know how to refer to. For example, people often refer to a soldier as he. And as we know, like a soldier could be he or she. So this is actually wrong because you're not including both sexes when you say he. So here's an example. During a deployment, you are far away from your family, or a soldier is far away from your family. So you is wrong here because like we don't use you to generalize, but also when we change it into one and we want to use a pronoun, we don't say his or her, okay? Because it's wordiness, it's too long. In the academic writing, we decided that we use their instead, okay, to include both sexes. So we would say during a deployment, one is far away from their family, or during a deployment, soldier is far away from their family. Okay, so we use their. So remember, don't generalize with you. And the last challenge is accuracy mistakes. And I want to talk about them because we often think like, oh, no, I know the grammar, like I know the rules, and then I get the writing from someone and I see all of these mistakes in the writing. And these mistakes come from a simple fact that a person did not edit their writing, because I'm pretty sure that if they did, these mistakes wouldn't be there, because there are mistakes. Well, I'm going to show you some examples of those mistakes. Tenses. Okay, when we finish the writing, we have time to read it and to actually spot all of these mistakes that we have made in terms of grammar, in terms of tenses. Articles. This is a common issue, especially for Polish, Czech speakers, because we don't have articles in our languages. I'm speaking for Polish, but I think in Czech neither. And we struggle a lot with articles, with using them. Then prepositions. All of us struggle with that. Okay, prepositions are a nightmare for a lot of students, and this is something that you need to study a lot, like before the exam. You need to revise the prepositions. All of these things that I'm pointing out here is something that you need to revise before the exam. Gerund and infinitive. Okay, so many mistakes with gerund and infinitive, both at the level 2 and 3. Repetition. Okay, especially when it comes to the pronouns and when it comes to the pronoun I. Okay, especially if you are writing a formal letter. Okay, in the formal letter, when we write about our own experience, we often tend to start every sentence with I. Okay, so we need to avoid that because this is considered repetitive. You need to find different ways to start a sentence, not all the time with I or with we. Okay, when we write a report about our unit, starting it with we all the time. Okay, pay attention to the repetition, because I know for sure that if there is like a lot of repetition, it means that the person didn't edit the writing, because when you read it, you will see it immediately, because you read it and you kind of hear the text when you're reading it in your head, right? And you spot it immediately. Missing pronoun it. So the Spanish speakers are guilty of that, Italian speakers as well, forgetting about the pronoun it. And typos. Typos are common when it comes to the computer-based exams. Some countries still have paper-based exams, for example, Poland, but other countries have introduced the computer-based exams, which has generated new types of mistakes, such as typos. Okay, so when we write on the keyboard, we tend to make some kind of mistakes that we wouldn't make normally. It's just because we clicked a wrong letter and it ended up being a typo. So again, you can spot all of the typos when you edit your writing. Okay, you need to do it carefully and try to find all of them in your text. So some key takeaways from that. These accuracy mistakes can actually be avoided thanks to editing. Yeah. So check and try to spot your mistakes. Actually, I thought that like some time ago, I created this grammar workbook that you can download on my website. It's in the free materials section. And this might be a nice revision to revise the tenses. This workbook focuses on present, past, and future tenses. So if you haven't gotten your hands on it yet, this might be a great revision. Try to be very specific with the examples given there. And finally, make a personalized list of typical mistakes that you tend to make. Analyze your assignments from the past, see if there are some reoccurring patterns, if there are some types of mistakes that you make and again, create a list. And I would like you to pay special attention to this type of mistakes, because this means that you might be likely to make this kind of mistakes again. Okay, so pay attention to those that you have on the list. Okay, everyone has like their mistakes. Okay, like if I think of my students, like I can like think of like typical mistakes that they make and that we are working so hard on eradicating, but everyone has like their own. So be aware of them, because actually awareness is the first step in order to change something. If you're not aware that you make a certain type of mistakes, like how are you supposed to change it? Okay, so do a little bit of self-study in terms of that. And I would like to hear from you. By the way, I didn't have a chance to take a look at the chat because as I'm sharing the screen, I couldn't see it. So if you guys have written something in the chat, I haven't seen it so far. But I would like you to take a moment and think, what has been the biggest writing challenge for you? Maybe it's something completely different, like not one of those 3 things that I have mentioned so far. I would like to know, and I will comment on that at the end of the webinar. So feel free to share that in the chat now or later on, okay? But take a moment to think about it because I will try to help you with that at the very end. Okay, and now I want to get to the juicy part. What really transforms your writing? And here I have one word answer for you, and that is feedback. What is feedback? Feedback is the information that a learner receives about their language learning, and most commonly it refers to the information about their language production. Speaking and writing are productive skills. So in order to know whether we are making progress, we need feedback. We need someone to point it out in a straightforward manner to us, because if not, we can just like keep repeating and making the same mistakes over and over again. Remember the awareness, okay? Feedback allows us to become aware of those mistakes. Okay, about feedback. Feedback has like one of the most powerful influences on learning, according to the scientists. And I want to show you the active feedback cycle. active learning cycle. So what happens when you receive feedback? You receive feedback, you actively engage with the feedback, you modify your knowledge, and then it improves your language production. Okay, so it works in this cycle all the time. This is how feedback allows us to actively learn. And there are different types of feedback. We've got summative feedback, which is usually the one that you might be used to from school. So getting a number, okay, so 8, 10, 5, right? Like getting those numbers that don't really tell us much in terms of our performance, in terms of how to improve. And we have formative feedback. So this is the type of feedback that is intended to help the learner in some way. And it gives us this feeling of continuous learning, okay? Like this journey, the learning journey that we are on. So we get the information, what we need to work on, or we also get the information, what was great, what we did very well, and what we need to work on. Okay, so it motivates us, but also tells us directly what to work on. And if we get the number, I mean, what does it tell us? Not much, to be honest. And feedback has 3 purposes: to improve your fluency, accuracy, and the complexity of your speaking and writing, to motivate you, and to develop learner autonomy. Learner autonomy, it's something that this is like an independence that we get in learning. So you don't need a person to be on top of you all the time. This is when you become responsible for your own learning. Okay, so at the beginning, we need someone who will guide us, who will tell us what we need to work on and how to work on it. And then we are becoming more and more independent, and we need this person less and less because we get more awareness about how to work on our issues. I see that you guys wrote something in the chat. Can't see it now yet, but I'll get to that. But I'm glad you wrote something. And comments and written prompts lead to more learning gains than providing scores, obviously. And they're more likely to contribute to learning when they are not accompanied by scores. Okay, so the researchers checked like whether we give like a number in the comments, people just look at the number. When we give the comments, like they really pay attention to those. Okay, when we just give the number, that's nothing. They just say like, oh, okay, I'm 5, okay, I'm 8, and nothing. Okay, so that's not something that I resonate with. That's not the way I like to give feedback to my students, because I think that they deserve to know like what they need to work on. And in the classroom, I used to have like a technique with my students. We had like some kind of code. And I love this strategy because it kind of activates them, because I was just writing like the letters code, like you can see here, like WO, it's word order. Okay, so students know that they need to change the order of the words, or SP for spelling. Okay, sometimes we think that it's lazy teaching, like lazy correction, but it's not, because it activates the student, that students need to check what is the correct spelling of it. And honestly, I love this strategy in the classroom, but when I teach online, I decided to give a little bit more in-depth feedback and to give you a little bit more guidance with that. As being like face-to-face with someone, like you can also provide like the oral feedback. Online is a little bit different. And I always add some brief explanations, some examples. That's the way I like to do it online, not just like SPWO. And actually, in the same research, like the researchers figured out that a majority of learners, both adults and those in the secondary education, seem to prefer more direct and explicit feedback. So being told directly what they did wrong, what they need to improve. Okay, so people want concretes. Okay, they need to know exactly what to fix and how to fix it, because it's not just the matter of telling people, no, this is wrong. You need to tell them why, how to work on it. And I think that effective feedback needs to be specific and related to your learning goals. So in that case, like passing the STANAG exam is your learning goals, and the feedback needs to be adapted to the assessment criteria that is required in the exam. It needs to be appropriately challenging. So it needs to be like encouraging like the student like to think, okay, not just like, this is it, like it is giving like the everything ready. Needs to challenge the student and make him or her curious, like to investigate a little bit more. That it entails the active involvement of the learner, the following, and combination of positive and negative. So probably you remember from school when you were getting your writing marked and it was like all red. At least this is like my memory from school, like just like the teacher using the red pen, correcting everything and just like red, red, red everywhere. And it was just the information, what was wrong in your text, and never like anything positive, okay, what you did well. And I also don't resonate with that. Like I think that there needs to be like a combination of positive and negative in order to empower students, okay? Tell them you're on the right path. This was great. This needs to be worked on, not just like, you know, like the wrong, wrong, wrong. And I wanted to compare different types of feedback that you can find. We've got some tools, for example, spell check. Okay, we've got Grammarly. Some of you might be familiar with Grammarly. And we also have teachers' feedback. Okay, so I wanted to compare them according to the assessment criteria, how they're doing with those aspects, with accuracy, fluency, task achievement, organization, and clarity. So honestly, spell check is doing like a decent job at the level of accuracy because it tells us about typos, but that's like the only thing that we can get from it. Grammarly is doing a bit better, okay, especially in the premium version. It can give us some tips on accuracy, on clarity. It's doing pretty well. In terms of fluency too, like how easy is your text to read, Grammarly is doing like a decent job. I would recommend using Grammarly in the daily correspondence, okay? Like when you're about to send an email, Grammarly is very helpful with that because it actually tells you how to fix those little mistakes, typos that you may have made, or if you're not clear. But honestly, these tools, they cannot compare like with the teacher's feedback because the teacher like knows exactly what you need to work on in terms of accuracy and fluency. The teacher knows the exam requirements, the task, okay? The teacher has the task in front of them, right? The spell check and Grammarly don't. They don't really recognize that. What is your task and how you completed it. Organization, unfortunately, they don't give you feedback on that as well. And the clarity, okay? Here, as I said, Grammarly is doing okay in terms of assessing your clarity, but still, it's nothing in comparison to the human eye that can give you feedback. So, to wrap it up, what really transforms your writing is the practice. Okay, that's like the element that a lot of people forget about, that you actually need to practice. Okay, it's not just consuming content. Okay, learning about some examples of model writings or memorizing some sentences. Writing is a productive skill, so you need to practice it in order to improve. Okay, don't forget about it. Okay, you cannot improve your writing just by reading about writing or reading examples. You gotta do the work. Sorry to video and to bring it, but yeah, you gotta do the work. Then getting feedback. You need to know whether you're on the right track. Okay, you need to know whether you're going in the right direction, or maybe there's something that you need to work on and you need to fix immediately. Okay, so some guidance. And thanks to that, you're learning a lesson and you apply the new knowledge. Okay, that's what actually transforms your writing. That's the real needle mover, okay, like the game changer, something that can give you results, okay, as logical as it seems. So now I would like you to imagine this, feeling relieved after finally having passed the writing part of the SLP exam. I know how amazing this feeling must be. I know how hard a lot of you work in order to get to that point. And I know how challenging it is, because this is not an easy exam. And the lack of resources, the lack of materials, like it's something that we are struggling with every single day. That's something that I'm struggling with too. And this is not an easy exam to handle. And when you finally achieve it, you get like this sense of success, the confidence, and it empowers you so much. And I've seen it in the eyes of my students, like when they did it, they were so relieved. And I share that feeling, and I'm so happy for them when they do that. I always celebrate it with them too, because I feel that we did it, okay? Like we're a team, we did it together, and like I also celebrate with them. And it may open like the new career opportunities in front of you. Okay, as we know, like the exam can help you a lot to advance your career. It's a requirement in a lot of countries in order to progress. So yeah, it's a challenging goal, but it's doable. Okay, it is doable. And what we have discussed today is just scratching the surface of what I teach you in the SLP writing course. So that's my baby. That's something that I have worked on for the first half of 2021. And I wanted to share it with you and share my excitement with you. And let me show you what it actually is. Okay, so it's everything that you need to know about the exam. Okay, I put all my heart and soul in it, everything that I know about the exam, in a form of videos, PDFs, quizzes, and I couldn't think of giving you more than that, okay? That all my heart is in this course. And I thought that I wanted this course to be a bit different. Like, I don't want you to just consume the content, because I don't believe in that. I don't believe that consuming the content gives you results. It's the action that you take, it's the work that you do. And sometimes we need someone to push us a little bit to do the work, okay? So this is me, I'm going to push you, okay? If you need someone to push you, you found the right person, okay? Because I really want you to make this happen, to get the results, okay? And in this course, I combine the theory and practice, okay? Because remember when we saw this active learning cycle of the feedback, okay? I believe in active learning. I believe in the work that you need to do on your part. But at the same time, I don't think that it has to be overcomplicated, okay? We need to simplify things. So I tried to squeeze in this course everything in a nutshell. So the most important things in the shortest time possible, because I know that how precious is your time. And I want to focus on the transformation, okay, on the writing that you do, the feedback that you get, and the change that it makes in your writing. Okay, I'm going to share with you in this course the easily applicable and highly effective framework that has already helped some students pass the exam, which I'm so happy about. And I actually wanted to show you what's inside, okay? Because I like concretes, okay? I like to know exactly what's in. So what is inside is practical video lessons related to all of the SLP writing types, both for the levels 2 and 3. I decided to include them together because both students at the level 2 you have lifetime access to the course. So if you are taking the level 2 now, you already have the materials for the level 3 as well. But if you're taking the level 3, sometimes you need to go back to the basics and revise some things from the past. Okay, there are some formats that you need to come back to, or maybe even writing informal letters. That's something that you might have forgotten how to do. Yeah, so it's good to refresh all of that and have it all in one place. So it's not just gonna serve you for the exam, but also like your work correspondence for both things. I just want it to be practical, both for the exam and for your life. Then we've got some special video lessons, such as typical writing mistakes, where I list 10 typical writing mistakes, different than the ones that I discussed here, and 4 features of a good writing. Okay, so how to make your writing really good quality. What are some aspects that you might be overlooking? Then we've got lists of expressions and model writings. This is always useful. Okay, it's always good to know how a perfect writing may look like, what is assessed as the maximum of points. We always need that. And as I said, we haven't got a lot of materials with that. So I wanted to provide you with those lists and model writings. We also have the checklists. I don't know about you, but I love checklists. I love like ticking off the things like done, done. So I have the checklist for planning and for editing. Okay. In the course, you learn the power strategy, which helps you to plan your writing and to edit your writing, which are 2 stages that students often skip. Okay. Don't skip them because the examiners will see through that immediately. If you haven't planned your writing, okay, they know who I'm talking to, okay, those who don't plan their writing, okay. This needs to change. This needs to stop right now, okay. You need to plan your writing. Trust me, I can smell like the unplanned writing after like 10 seconds of looking at the text, okay, and so can examiners. Okay, because you can really see like how disorganized, chaotic, not coherent is the text if it's not planned. So if you think like, oh no, I don't need to plan, forget it. Like you have to plan. But I want to show you in the course how to do it. Okay, how to plan your writing, step by step, what to plan, how to plan. Okay, because we know, okay, I need to plan, but how do I plan? Okay, so I wanted to take you step by step through that. This is what happens in the guided writing sessions. Each writing type has the guided writing session where I take you on a journey. I narrate my thoughts, how I would, my thought process, how I plan this writing. Okay, so then you can recreate that when you're doing it yourself. So I want to automate it a little bit to make it automatic, planning and editing. Okay, so you don't really have to think about it that much. It becomes automatic after you have done it a few times. Then you also get some bonuses. We all like a good bonus. And I decided to include these bonuses. 50 must-use adjectives, because let's be honest, sometimes we all end up saying important, interesting, good, and nice. Okay, and somehow all of these adjectives, all of these fancy adjectives that we have learned, like they're gone. Okay, we don't use them. Okay, I decided to divide them according to the topics. For example, adjectives related to people, to places, to events. Okay, to food. Okay, we would use different adjectives in all of this area. So I wanted to give you 50 must-use adjectives. So they're not this kind of weird adjectives that nobody uses. Quite the opposite. They're very commonly used adjectives. So really worth knowing. Then you also get the tools to use to improve your writing. That's something to do after the course. I talked about this, about learner autonomy. I want you to become an independent learner. I want to give you the tools and then send you to the world. okay? And be able to do the things on your own too, and work on your writing in the future as well. So these tools are like what you can use to improve your writing. These are different applications that I recommend, different books that I think that are worth having and reading. And more. They're just like some bonuses. And there's an online quiz on linking words, because we all struggle a bit with the linking words, and sometimes we use them a little bit randomly. Okay, I want you to use them consciously, strategically, know exactly where you're using this linking word. What is the purpose of this linking word? So there's a PDF with them, but also the quiz. And finally, here's the party. The feedback. You get the constructive feedback on 3 writing assignments that you submit after having completed the theory part. Okay, so this is where the magic happens. Okay, this is where you actually do the work. Okay, you implement all of the things that you have learned in the course. You get my feedback on it. Okay, and this is like the most detailed feedback that I can give. If I gotta be honest, I spend way too much time like writing feedback for my students. Sometimes it takes me hours to do it, but I just cannot do it any other way. Okay, like I cannot just like do it fast and be done. Like I have to like give like my best, like when I correct the writings. That's kind of perfectionist thing, but yeah. But I think it's good for you, because like I do my best with the feedback. And the guidelines on what you need to work on and how, okay? So I also send you some extra materials. So this is something individual. When I notice that you struggle with a particular grammar structure, or there is something that you need to work on, I send you additional PDFs on that, exercises, and this is very individual. For every person is going to be a different set. Okay, so that's something that some conclusions that I take from the texts that you have sent me. If you want, you can also send me your planning. Okay, like you can show me how you plan. Okay, so I can track this process. Okay, so for those of you who haven't developed yet the habit of planning, okay, when you send me your writing, I also encourage you to send me the plan of your writing. So this is like an easy way to spot certain things when it can go wrong in terms of the organization of your writing. And this is basically how the feedback looks like. So I use Google Classroom. I don't know if you're familiar with this tool. And I mark like the parts that I want to comment on. And I give you both like positive and constructive feedback on different parts. And yeah, this is actually one of my students' writing. I ask for his permission to show it here. And I give you some feedback of what to change, what to work on according to the assessment criteria. Okay, that's something that I always have at the back of my head when I write the feedback for your writing. And actually, I wanted to share some happy news with you that 2 students have already completed the course. There are 2 more who are in the process now. I think that they're both here today. So hi guys, hope you're enjoying the course. And 2 other students who have already completed it gave me phenomenal feedback that I'm so happy to receive. Vitor from Portugal, he said the feedback on his essays was really the crucial information that he needed in order to move this needle. And Victor actually passed the level 3 exam 2 weeks ago. So yeah, we're so happy for him. And Jakub actually took the exam today. So we haven't got the results yet, but he was very happy with the course. He said that I give a lot of tips and advice and to advance his writing. And he said that the part that he especially enjoyed was the guided writing session. Okay, so this is this part where I narrate my thoughts, how I plan the writing, okay, and I type it. So, and he says that he now feels more confident with the writing, which is such a beautiful thing to hear. Like when you make someone feel confident about their writing skills. This is like the best thing that I can hear, that somebody actually managed to build the confidence. And this is like the little magic that happens, okay? But just disclaimer, this won't work unless you do, okay? So you have to do the work, okay? It's not just I have a magic pill or a magic wand that I'm gonna move and it's all gonna happen magically. No, it actually happens through consistent work, okay? And implementing the changes, okay? So this is like the effort of both, okay? Remember, don't have a magic wand, okay? Even if in the picture there is one, but no. What you get, you gain clarity of what is expected from you on the exam, because sometimes we don't really know what the examiners want to see, right? Also because of that, because we haven't got access to a lot of materials and we don't know what we need to focus on. So the clarity is huge. Then the confidence, so what Jakub said about feeling more confident in terms of the writing skills. Then improving the writing skills, optimizing the exam score, receiving feedback and support in the process. This is huge, like to have someone to have your back in the process, okay? Sometimes it's like a painful process, okay? Because some of us don't feel so eager to write or don't feel such good writers, okay? So to have someone supporting you in the process is of a huge value. And you develop a habit of planning and editing. I basically push you to develop this habit, okay? So you gotta do the work. And thanks to that, we can have like quick and applicable changes in our writing. There are some things that students tell me in terms of their writing skills, which are some kind of mental blocks that I would like to debunk today. First one is, I don't have ideas what to write about. I'm not a very creative writer. And that's okay. You don't have to be a creative writer. We are not writing a novel here, okay? You don't have to be a novelist, okay? You need to be a strategic writer, not a creative writer, okay? So I wanted to remove this idea from your head of how creative your arguments need to be. Not at all. They need to be specific, on point, and you need to follow this paragraph structure that I recommended, and it's perfectly fine, okay? It's not like the more creative is your idea, the better, okay? The more clarity it has, not the creativity, clarity, okay? The more effective it is. So forget about this excuse that I'm not a very creative writer. You don't need to be, I'm telling you. Okay, the other thing that people say that, yeah, I use English at work, so I think I'm good, okay? Yes and no, okay? It actually depends like on your context. If you use English on a daily basis, at work, if you write daily correspondence in English, or if you communicate with your coworkers in English, probably it might be enough. Although you still need to like practice the writing part, but it might be enough. However, this is not the case for a lot of us. A lot of us do not work in the English-speaking environment every single day, and we don't have so much contact with the language. This creates like this context where we don't have enough exposure to the English language, and we don't produce the language, either in speaking or writing. And remember, they are productive skills. In order to improve, you need to produce the language. So using English at work, yeah, to some extent, but still, even if you speak like with your colleagues in English, sometimes they may not correct you because they feel that it's impolite to correct you, right? They don't want to be rude. This also depends on the culture of the country. In some cultures, it's just rude, you know, like they know that it's your second language and the main goal is communication. They don't want to correct you, your prepositions or your typos in your writing. No, they want to communicate. That's the main goal. So they may not actually give you any feedback whether you're doing great or not so great. And this, I can learn everything from a book. Please send me this book, okay? I want this book, okay? I really do. There are some materials available on the market that actually can help us to prepare for the STANAG exam. That's true. Some of them focus on a specific country, though, so might not be perfect for all of us. But if there is like a book that does all of it, like I'm the first one who's going to order. Another thing about the book is just, again, you just consume, okay? You consume. You can sit down and practice, okay? Like, and write about the topics that you're given, that the book shows you. And then what? You're gonna ask your colleagues or like your English speaking friend like to correct it, or like what's actually going to happen. Okay, like you need feedback. Okay? You need to know whether this writing is good quality or not. Okay, you need to hear someone's feedback in order to progress, because if not, like you're just journaling basically. Okay, like we journal, like we write like our thoughts, but without any need to get feedback. But the exam writing is different. You need feedback in order to progress. Do you know what happens in the comfort zone when we decide to stay in our safe environment, safe space? Nothing, nada, status quo, niente, nic. Okay, nothing happens in the comfort zone. Okay, so you cannot achieve great things staying in your comfort zone. Okay, this is not the place of growth. Okay, the place of growth is outside of the comfort zone. Okay, so if you're like fantasizing about your future and your career, what you're gonna do when you pass the exam, just stop fantasizing and just do the damn thing and take action. Okay, I really want you to take action, and I want to help you in this journey and support you with all of the tools that I have. Okay, take a look at the picture. This is your comfort zone. And look where the magic happens. It's outside of your comfort zone. Okay, so definitely not in the safe space, not when we try to challenge ourselves. And I wanted to thank you for being here today. It really means the world to me that you have showed up here today to support me, to listen to me, and that I could share all of this excitement for this program that I have with you. And thank you. And I want us to keep in touch, whether you purchased the program or not. Okay, like this is totally up to you, but I want us to keep talking about it. I want us to keep in touch. If there is anything that I can help you with, if you're struggling with something in particular and you would like to talk to me, I'm always open to have conversations with you in the DMs, on Instagram, in the email. We can exchange emails, and I do it all the time with people who talk to me. You know, just approach me and send me a DM if there's anything that you're a question that you have. Okay, so just wanted to tell you that feel free to do that. I love interacting with people, and I want to create like this supportive community around. Yeah, just thank you for being here. This is how we can keep in touch, where you can find me. The most direct contact is basically on Instagram, because this is where I show up daily and where we can talk more directly. But I also have a YouTube channel, and this is my website. And it's finally time for me to take a look at the questions that you guys wrote. Just let me open the chat, because I haven't seen it. Okay, can you guys see the chat as well as I'm sharing the screen? Let me know if you can see the chat, because I just brought, okay, wait, yes, okay, great. Okay, so we have some comment from Gennaro. I usually get stuck because of a lack of ideas. Okay, so in the course, I show you the strategy of the discussion clock that you can use when you don't have ideas what to write about. And yeah, that might be an obstacle. Like when you say like, okay, what the hell do I write about? Okay, like I don't know much about this topic. And discussion clock technique can help you enormously with that. Okay, so you can learn more about it in the course. You can also Google it. I think that the discussion clock technique, and you can find information on it, no problem. And that's something that I always recommend to my students when they tell me that they are stuck because of lack of ideas. You're right, especially in essay tests. Okay, Luca responding to Janetta, I think. Christina, sometimes I don't know anything about the subject, even in my native language. Yeah, that's the issue. For level 3, one should have a very good knowledge about everything. Different means that usually one doesn't need on daily routine. Exactly. Christina brought up something really important here, that I have seen some exam topics that you're expected to know a lot about. And I read that, no, like we don't assess students' knowledge. Bullshit, like, because sometimes you cannot really write about this topic if you don't have a knowledge about it, okay? One of the examples was one of my Spanish students recently had an exam, well, already some months ago, and the topic was about educational changes in the Spanish education system, as far as I remember. So she needed to know like some changes in the education system from the past and right now. So she's in the Air Force, you know, that's not particularly her area of interest, the Spanish education system right now, but that was her topic and she needed to face this topic. So the best thing that I can recommend is to download the list of topics, okay? If you need the list of topics for the level 2 and 3, I have it, I can share it with you. Education is one of those topics, and you just need to read as much as possible around those topics. Okay, there's no other way. You cannot predict exactly what they will ask you around education or environment or some other topic. But you can prepare for that just reading a lot, listening to podcasts about them. You can decide about thematic weeks. Okay, for example, this week I'm focusing on this topic. I'm consuming content about listening, about education. Okay, and always focus on your country's context. Okay, for example, education system in Spain or in your country. And also look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture would be Europe, also NATO. Okay, a lot of topics are related to European Union and NATO, and also like the world perspective. Obviously, like the topic of education is not the one that they would ask you to discuss in the world perspective, but there are some topics that might be discussed. Okay, so always go through from the lowest, like from the maybe not even your region, start from the country, okay, then Europe and NATO, and then the world, and start to like gather some knowledge around it. That's what I would recommend. But I agree with Christina that this is an issue, like that when we read the topic and like we're like, oh my gosh, I don't know much about it. So you can prepare a little bit for that, thanks to reading around those topics. Carolina, when checking the papers of my students, they often produce the sentences based on their native language, Polish structure, not the English one. Yes, and in Spanish, we call it Spanglish. In Polish, I don't know if we actually have a name for that, right? Like Polish, or like if you know, like let me know. But that's what happens, like when students copy the structure and the sentences sound very unnatural. Okay, so if you're a Spanish speaker, I have like a master class that focuses especially on that, like Spanglish mistakes in your SLP. But for all of the speakers of all of the languages, this is something that we need to eradicate by a lot of exposure to the language. Okay, we need to pay attention to the sentence structure in English and try to adopt it in our writing. Okay, you need to kind of switch into thinking about this topic in English. How? Exposing yourself a lot to this topic in English, consuming the content, For example, when I started studying at university, I started to consume a lot of content in English, because before I studied in Polish in the high school. Then at university, I started to consume content in English. And that was the moment when I started to think in English. And I started like to express the ideas in a completely different way in Polish, and sometimes in English and in Polish. And sometimes we get to the point that we don't even know the word in our native language. If we did, for example, the course in a foreign language, and we learned all of the technical vocabulary around it in English, then we struggle with, okay, what about this word in my native language? What is the word? Sometimes we cannot find those equivalents. This means that we did a great job with immersing ourselves in the language when you don't even know what is the equivalent in your native language. So I would recommend exposure, and paying a lot of attention to the English sentence structure, maybe even comparing it. Learning collocations is also a wonderful way to sound natural. Okay, collocations will help you to get this natural sounding vibe to your English. So Carolina, for your students, I would recommend learning a lot of collocations, and you can analyze with them the English sentence structure, compare it to the Polish one. That may be a good exercise to make them aware that this is not how it works. Oh, Francesco, sorry, but I must dash. I'm continuing to watch the recording. Have a nice evening. Have a nice evening, Francesco. Gennaro, I'm sorry, but I have to quit too. I watched the recorded video. You will provide us. See you soon. See ya. Luca continues the discussion. Christina, you're also right. I've been told to read a lot. Okay, Christina. Okay, I missed all of this conversation when I was doing the webinar, but I just couldn't do two things at the same time, multitask like this, because I get like digressions and discuss the other thing. I understand about military domain, but even there can be Air Force domain, Special Forces domain, Navy area. But then from geopolitics to medicine, the subject vary a lot. Yes. And to be honest, I don't think we will use that English vocabulary in our job. You're totally right. Some of the tasks that I have seen, I like frowned upon them a little bit, because this is, I will tell you my honest opinion. I don't think that being a member of the armed forces, you need to write essays and articles. Okay, I don't think this is particularly useful. And this is what the exam is about in some countries. I think that what is useful is writing reports, writing memoranda, writing formal letter emails, right? This is the type of correspondence that we actually use in our daily life. So I'm not a great fan of those topics or those essay topics that are kind of fancy. Do you remember the Portuguese exam topic, also like philosophical one? I don't know. I have like mixed feelings about it. And I agree with you, Christina, that sometimes the topics might not be like the best fit. Okay. I think that they should be a little bit more specific, a little bit more concrete, a little bit more like focused on like the issues that you can tell more about. And you can still speculate fantastically about and make hypotheses about the topics that matter to you. And unfortunately, the exam looks as it looks in some countries. I wish it could change in the future. I hope it will change and that it will look a little bit more similar in different countries, because it's not, I don't think it's fair that the exam looks so different in every country. This may create like lack of equality between like what is the level 3 in one country, what is in the other. Maybe you're looking at the topics from the other country and you think, no, they have an easier exam. It shouldn't be like that, okay? You shouldn't feel in this way. And I think that we sometimes do feel in this way, looking at the exam tasks from other countries. So hopefully it will change. And yeah, I will try to do something about it and like to add my part to it. Thank you so much, Magda. Thank you for being here and supporting me. Okay. All right, if there is anything else that you would like to add at the end, let me know, because if not, we'll be just wrapping up. And, you know, you can always approach me like on Instagram, on Facebook, in the email and ask, okay? Like sometimes we find out these kind of things like, oh, wait, there is a list of topics and we didn't even know that. So let's exchange the information, let's share, let's help each other. Like that's my whole idea, like to create this community of people from different countries to support each other. And thank you guys. I'm sending you hacks from Spain, wherever you are in the world. Wait, one more thing. Thank you very much. It's been really useful and interesting. Yay! I'm glad that that was my goal, to make it interesting, and I hope it was helpful. And as I said, like hit me up if there is anything that is bugging you and like you want to ask me. And see you soon. Okay, and take care. Have a great evening. Last message. Bye. Bye, friend. Goodbye.